So just like every other seamstress, I have a very bad problem of hoarding fabrics, and I'm always finding new stuff to add to my collection. I definitely fall in the camp of people who believe that collecting fabric is a completely separate hobby from actually using it. But that being said, I am trying to work through some of my stash fabrics. So this is a series that I've kind of started. This is the second installment of this series where I'm just going through and finding stash fabric and making something from it. So this is going to be a revisit of an old pattern that I've done before and a remake of a dress that I have several colors of. So it'll be interesting to revisit this pattern. It's been a few years since I've used it. If you've ever used a Vogue pattern before, you know that they are pretty complicated, and I didn't know what I was doing the first time around, so I'm really curious to see how this time will go. So welcome to the second episode of What's in My Stash. Okay, so for today's episode of What's in My Stash, I'm going to be making a dress out of this really gorgeous rose print satin that I have. For this project, I am going to be revisiting a pattern that I have done before. This is the Vogue V1697. I actually have posted a video of me using this pattern before. It's one of the very first videos I made a million years ago, and this is the first project I ever made that was cut on the bias, and I didn't know what I was doing at all. One of the pattern pieces is backwards on that dress, so the wrong side of the fabric is on the outside. So hopefully I can do it a little bit better this time around. And to add another layer of interestingness to this video, I am going to sew the whole thing with my grandmother's old Singer featherweight. So this machine is the machine that I learned to sew on, and I just not recently, it's probably about 2 years ago now, I had it completely cleaned, rewired, all of that by a local place here in town that does sewing machine repairs. So this has been fully tuned up, and I just haven't really used it since I got it fixed up. So I think it'd be fun to try it out. And I think I'm going to do this gown, and then I think I'm also, as a little added bonus, going to make a little mini as well. Let's start by cutting everything out. Quick reminder, if you're going to attempt to make something that's cut on the bias, always remember that the pattern pieces need to be facing the same direction. So the front of the pattern should be facing up for each piece. This is going to guarantee that the right side of the fabric is going to be on the outside of the garment. If you flip it, it will not be the same. I've made this mistake multiple times, so learn from my mistakes. To kick off the sewing, I'm going to start with the darts, and because of the age of this machine, I am just taking things a little bit more slowly than I normally would, and surprisingly, this very old machine does have an option to do reverse stitch. Next up, I'm going to finish the neckline, so to do that, I want to make a very small baby hem, so I'm going to fold the fabric over once, sew it, cut away the excess, and then fold it over again and sew it, and this is going to give a very clean, crisp edge. And this is a technique that we're going to revisit several times throughout the process of making these dresses. The one big downside to using this machine is that it doesn't have a seam allowance guide, so I'm going to quickly put some masking tape on the bed of the machine, and then using my sewing guide, I'm measuring from the needle, and I'm going to mark a 1/2 inch seam allowance and a 5/8 seam allowance so that I can sew a little bit more easily. Well, that was a bust. Okay, so something jammed in the old machine, and I can't quite figure out what is causing it, so I'm just putting it away. I'll take a look at it later, but I just don't want to damage that machine on accident. So we're going to switch back to my good old faithful. Luckily, I did just give her a really good clean and oiled her and gave her a new needle and everything, so hopefully this will be a much smoother sailing. So, wish that could have worked out, but it didn't, but I'm not giving up on it, and I would like to make another project on that machine, so just won't be this one. But let's keep going. After sewing together the front and the back panels, I'm then going to use that same technique for the baby hem to finish the top of the back piece, and then I'm going to give everything a really good press. Okay, so I have the body of the maxi dress done. Next step would be like all the straps and everything, which is the bias tape that we cut. But I'm actually gonna put that on pause for 1 minute and I'm gonna work on the other dress I'm gonna make instead, just because that one will also need bias tape. So let's just do it all together at one time. So I'm gonna use a very basic pattern that I have used several times. This is a pattern I drafted. It's just a really, really basic bias cut mini dress, but I do want to make a change. So this one is just like straight. And for this, I want it to have a little bit more of like an A-line flare. So I am going to copy this and make edits to it, and then I can start making this dress for real. But let's do the pattern edits first. Because I want to keep my original pattern, I don't want to change that. I'm going to start by completely tracing those pattern pieces, and then using a method called slash and spread, I'm going to cut the pattern open. So I'm going to cut along the waist almost to the very end, but you want the paper to still be connected, and to do another cut from the hem all the way up to that cut, again leaving just a little bit so that it doesn't all break apart. Then I will lay that onto another new piece of paper and spread everything out into the shape that I want it. And then I'm going to use my tailoring curve to smooth out all those edges. Okay, so both dresses are put together other than the straps and the hem. So I am going to let them hang. It's pretty late in the day today, so I'm going to call it. But I'm going to let them hang. In case you've never worked with a bias cut garments before, they do have to hang up on a hanger for 24 hours before you can do the hem, just because there's a lot of, it's pulling on the fabric and there's a lot of stretch to it. So just kind of lets it settle before you do the hem. So that's perfect that I have them both done. They can hang overnight, and then I can do the hem and all the straps tomorrow all together. The next day I was able to do the hem for both dresses, and you guessed it, we're doing yet another baby hem on both of the dresses. Next up, I need to make a very long piece of bias tape that's going to act as the closure for the back of the mini dress as well as the straps for it. And to make this, I'm just using this clear ruler that's going to give me my width, and I'm marking both sides with a disappearing ink pen and then cutting it out with a rotary cutter. After cutting out the bias tape, I then need to fold it. So I am folding it so that the edges meet in the middle and then just ironing it into place. I like to do this by hand, but there's also bias tape makers. I have one of those as well. I've done both. I think I'm just more familiar with using my hands to do this, so that's what I typically do. Once the bias tape is ready, I can then attach it. So I'm going to unfold one of the sides and line it up with the edge of the top of my dress. And I am trying to sew in that fold line all the way around. Once the bias tape is attached, I then fold it over to encase that raw edge and then sew it one more time, and this is going to create a spaghetti strap. And as I transition from the strap onto the dress itself, I'm going to do what's called stitching in the ditch. So I'm trying to sew right along the edge of the bias tape as close as I possibly can get. This way it catches the bias tape on the back side without leaving any sort of marks or being able to see the stitches. Okay, so that concludes this episode of What's in My Stash. So overall, I think everything turned out really well. I'm very happy with the dress I made from the Vogue pattern. If you ever used a Vogue pattern before, you know that they are very complicated, but I managed to pull it off pretty okay. I might change how the back straps go together just because I need it to pull even tighter on the waist, so I might change how those connect just so it pulls a little bit more. Really happy with the short one. Full disclosure, I did shorten it about 3 inches after the fact because it was just too long for me, but love this, love the fabric. I'm really iffy on the color of it, but I'm trying to just embrace it. I think it's a little cool for my skin tone, but that's okay. I will definitely get good use out of it. So if you have any questions about anything that I made in this video or techniques I used, any of that good stuff, happy to answer them, and I will see y'all on the next one. Bye.